Hi, everybody. I'm Nolan. Hoffman, thanks for joining us tonight for East Texas in Focus. Let's get started. Well, tonight we are focusing on the 89th legislative session, and during this regular session, which calls state lawmakers to Austin every 2 years, legislators filed more than 8,500 bills. About 1,200 of them passed. Now, lawmakers spending the final weeks of the session trying to push through their priorities. They're also tried to stop certain bills as well by delaying votes and letting them miss key deadlines. A number of bills are now on the way to Governor Greg Abbott's desk, and he has a choice. He can either sign or veto them. Most new laws would take effect on September 1st. During the 140-day legislative session, which ended June 2nd, lawmakers passed a raft of conservative policies, from private school vouchers to tighter bail laws. Governor Abbott checked off every item on his priorities list, while Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick accomplished most of his own to-do list. Let's begin tonight with the bills that at this point have been signed by Abbott to become law. Now, starting with school choice and public education funding, these two pieces of legislation were top priorities for GOP lawmakers. Senate Bill 2, the school choice bill, will allow families to use $1 billion in taxpayer funds to pay for their children's private school tuition and homeschool expenses. Well, House Bill 2, the school finance package, will send about $8.5 billion to boost public schools. And when it comes to the school choice bill tonight, it will soon be the biggest day one version of the program in the country. Our Capitol Bureau reporter Dylan McKim tells us what comes next for Texas education.
Lawmakers and Texans from across the state gathered at the governor's mansion to witness the final step of passing an education savings account.
School choice is now the law of the great state of Texas.
Each student accepted in the program will get a little more than $10,000 the first year, with special education students getting up to $30,000 each year.
Power to the parents.
It's been a priority for state Republicans who believe it will improve Texas education for all students.
We are going to make, through school choice, public schools even more competitive and better. It's not about us against them or them against us, all together.
But just across the road from the celebration,
No vouchers. Save our schools.
Public school teachers and Democratic lawmakers protesting the law and hanging this banner, arguing the school choice program will only help the state's wealthiest families and harm public schools.
With the stroke of his pen, Greg Abbott is betraying nearly 6 million Texas public school students.
That's the will of the legislature, and so we'll live with it. And, you know, if it will come back in 2 years, and if things are not working as they said they would, you know, we'll have an opportunity to make changes to it or do away with it or whatever. You know, it's not the end of the world, but I just believe it's not good policy. So we'll live with it.
Reporting for us tonight, the school choice bill was signed May 3rd, a month before the session ended. When it comes to the school finance bill, the governor signed that piece of legislation just last week. Lawmakers have called it the biggest education investment in the state's history, but some school leaders now say the investment falls short in some areas. Take a listen to this.
Governor Greg Abbott is signing an $8.5 billion check. Money school districts say they desperately needed.
Texas is #1 in so many categories. Texas should be #1 in educating our children.
About half of the new dollars will go toward teacher pay raises, a priority for Governor Abbott this session.
Put more teachers on the pathway to being able to earn a 6-figure salary.
For a smaller school district like Salado ISD, it means an $8,000 pay raise for teachers with more than 5 years of experience and a $4,000 pay bump for teachers with at least 3 years.
This bill will provide historic raises for our teachers here in Salado ISD.
School leaders have expressed their appreciation with this bill, but still some have concerns with the local control of these dollars, including one school district 300 miles south of Salado in Mercedes, Texas.
It doesn't really provide funding for the day-to-day issues that districts run across on any given day.
School leaders like Dr. Alicia Noyola hoped for a larger increase to the basic allotment, which gives school districts more flexibility on how to use those dollars. The structure of this bill earmarks those dollars for specific costs, a move supporters say will free up the basic allotment to be used for day-to-day costs.
To help out with those budget issues, there's $1.3 billion of this budget going toward that.
But Noyola still believes the new dollars will not be enough.
While we will have money for a number of programs, districts will still be in a position to have to make some tough decisions.
That was also Dylan McKim reporting there. The bill also reforms the teacher incentive allotment, which is a program to pay high-performing teachers a bigger salary. Governor Abbott has also announced that $481 million of funds were awarded to 42,000 teachers this year. Now that House Bill 2 has been signed by the governor, our news station had the opportunity to speak with Tyler ISD superintendent about it. He says the new legislation is a huge win for East Texas, saying the district will now be able to give more money for teacher incentives to ensure they can make sure that their students are getting the very best educators.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, and we're very appreciative of everything they've done down there in Austin. I'd kind of gone viral, talk about it was a BB at a tank. Well, obviously the work that they've done, it's a different caliber, shooting at that tank on the increased cost and other things, but we're very excited and very appreciative of the work that they've done down there in Austin to get us to this point.
He also says the $430 million allotted for school safety is huge, adding it will help the district ensure students and parents have peace of mind. Other public education changes to come out of the 2025 Texas Legislature include schools now being able to manage classroom disruptions with more discipline and a 10 Commandments bill requiring the commandments to be displayed in each Texas classroom. Lawmakers also extend the state's DEI ban to K through 12 schools. They gave parents and school boards more control over school library materials. And finally, Texas students will now be barred from using their cell phones during the school day. House Bill 150, which will establish a cyber command center based in San Antonio, has also been signed by the governor. Abbott spoke about the bill and how the new center will serve as a line of defense against cyber attacks. Here's more.
They endanger law enforcement agencies, healthcare centers, our power grid, our water system, oil fields, and financial centers. Those dangers loom even larger with the acceleration of artificial intelligence and the way that it can be used to enhance cyber attacks.
In his 2025 State of the State address, Governor Abbott also declared the formation of a Texas Cyber Command as an emergency item for this legislative session. In a signing ceremony in Houston earlier this month, the governor also signed several bail reform bills. Making it harder for accused violent criminals to get out of jail was one of Abbott's 7 emergency items this session. However, some of his proposals were not able to get through the legislature. Adam Schweger tells us if Abbott is content with the measures that did pass.
Governor Greg Abbott.
Thank you for being a constant advocate for
declaring victory on one of his top issues, bail reform.
The bail reform that I campaigned on and got passed is exactly what I want to turn into law.
The main reform Governor Abbott signed allows judges, like the ones in this building, to deny bail for certain defendants who are deemed either a flight risk or a danger to the community. The final decision, however, rests with the Texas voters.
This is going to pass overwhelmingly, and our goal, I think, should be around 90%.
While these reforms passed, a pair of Abbott-backed reforms failed, including a provision to automatically deny bail for certain repeat offenders and to automatically deny bail for people in the country illegally. Those failures led opponents of bail reform to say,
from that perspective, we are very happy to say that we see this as an overall victory.
And while Abbott was celebrating the bills that did pass, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was floating the idea of a special session to take another shot at the ones that didn't.
Whether it's in a special session or the next session, we will not stop until these criminals and these illegal immigrants who are here committing crimes and killing little girls under a bridge are put in jail forever and never let out on bail or bond.
Abbott says he fulfilled his promise he made to Texas voters earlier in the year, but did say that those failed proposals,
as Schwarzenegger would say, they're going to be back.
And we are not done yet.
In Houston, I'm Adam Schweger.
And again, it was Adam Schweger with that report. The constitutional amendment vote will take place this November. Other pieces of legislation that have also been signed by Governor Abbott include Senate Bill 326, the anti-Semitism bill, a measure that would require schools to use a controversial definition of anti-Semitism in student disciplinary proceedings. This legislation is in response to pro-Palestinian protest. Senate Bill 5 has also been signed, which established a dementia research fund in Texas, a bill that would put $3 billion towards starting a dementia research fund, pending voter approval. He also signed Senate Bill 2308, allowing the state to spend $50 million for psychedelic research. With its signing, which was sponsored in the House by East Texas State Representatives Cody Harris and Gary Vandever, this makes Texas the first state to not only develop the drug, but it also allows Texas to retain control of the research process. For several years, veterans have traveled to clinics in Mexico for treatment using the drug derived from a native plant in West Africa. Ibogaine is used to treat and alleviate both addiction and brain trauma. The Speaker of the House spoke about his hopes for this new path forward.
When you actually hear from people and people come to these chambers, it makes an impact. It makes a difference. And we heard story after story of people who went and got treatment, credible actors, and felt it had improved their lives, whether it was an opioid addiction or other issues they were dealing with. It made an impact. And slowly, as session went on, the members of the Texas House, members of the Senate began to agree that this was worth the next step.
Speaker Burrows also adds he's excited about the clinical trials aimed at providing relief to so many people affected by addiction and traumatic brain injuries. Well, the governor has only signed a handful of bills so far. There are at least 20 other pieces of legislation that are still waiting for his signature, including banning or regulating THC, cutting property taxes, and the state budget. When we return here at East Texas in Focus, of course, we'll look at all of those bills and what could be ahead for them. We'll be right back. Welcome back tonight. The 89th Texas State Legislative Session has come and gone once again. And during the first half of the year, lawmakers were able to pass about 1,200 pieces of legislation. If passed, bills go to the governor, who can decide whether to sign or veto them. Governor Greg Abbott has until June 22nd to make his decision. Bills can also go into law without his signature. All bills that pass with at least 2/3 of the both chambers' approval cannot be vetoed, though. Abbott has not indicated which, if any, bills he will veto. In a major win for Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, lawmakers approved a ban on products containing THC, which is the compound found in marijuana that makes people high. It fulfills the Lieutenant Governor's priority of eradicating Texas's booming hemp industry, but Governor Greg Abbott has not signaled just yet if he will sign the bill. In a brief stop at the Tyler Pounce Regional Airport earlier this week, Patrick spoke largely on that proposed THC ban. Isaac Ramirez reports for us.
This is an organized assault on the state of Texas by the cannabis industry in Colorado and California, Mexico, China, wherever, sending these products in to hook our kids on drugs.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick defending one of his top priorities, the proposed THC ban, as some businesses in East Texas worry about potential layoffs.
It's not going to have any negative impact on the economy. And I have a real concern about the smoke shops in Tyler selling drugs, high potency drugs, to our kids and destroying their lives.
A co-owner of a Tyler smoke shop says if Senate Bill 3 is signed, it will harm people who rely on these products and hurt their bottom line.
Probably around 30% of sales. Some people are using it, just for aches and pains from joint muscles, arthritis, lots of anxiety and depression.
State Senator Brian Hughes of Mineola joined the Lieutenant Governor during his stop in Tyler. He points to a compromise to expand the Texas Compassionate Use Program.
For our veterans, for folks who need marijuana from their doctor to help with medical conditions, we expanded that program to help them while we make sure that children aren't being preyed upon by some of these products.
Governor Greg Abbott has not indicated whether he intends to sign that bill. The state senator also responded to criticism, claiming this ban is too broad.
We try to pass laws based on testimony, based on evidence, and we try to get it right. So I think that's where we are on this one. There's always going to be criticisms. It could have gone further, didn't go far enough.
At his less than 20-minute stop in Tyler, the Lieutenant Governor also touched on a bill requiring Texas public schools to display the 10 Commandments, calling on East Texas churches, businesses, and individuals to consider providing these materials to local districts.
But it's 16 by 20 inches, being easy to read. You can take it to the school, so you get it copied, you frame it, and take it to the school, and they are required by law to put it in their classrooms.
That bill awaits the governor's signature. Patrick also touted an increase in the state's homestead exemption and the approval of the school voucher program.
And again, it was Isaac Ramirez reporting for us tonight. Other big wins for Texas legislatures, which are still waiting a signature from the governor, now include Senate Bill 17, which would prohibit land sales to people and entities from countries the government deems national security threats, places like China, Iran, and Russia. There were also clarifications made this year to the state's abortion laws, including Senate Bill 31, which aims to clarify when doctors are allowed to perform abortions under the state's ban, while Senate Bill 33 bars local governments from providing aid for out-of-state travel abortions. This year, the Texas Senate and House also agreed on tax relief changes and sent two bills to the governor's desk that, if he signs, will raise the homestead exemption for homeowners. Rachel Davis spoke with local tax professionals in East Texas to find out how this will affect East Texans.
Two bills raising homestead exemptions are headed to Governor Greg Abbott's desk and to voters in November.
This is real relief for working families. Every Texas homeowner will see their exemption raised.
Senate Bill 4 is set to increase the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000 for all Texas homeowners.
So everybody's going to get a $40,000 extra exemption.
What does that mean for your property tax bill? Smith County Tax Assessor Collector Gary Barber says it translates to savings.
If you're in Tyler Independent School District and we're using last year's tax rate, say last year's value, a $40,000 increase in the exemption would save you $364 on your tax bill.
The rise in exemption will be applied to the portion of the bill that goes to your school district.
This is only for the schools. The ISD portion of the tax bill, but it just increases that exemption.
Senate Bill 23 is also up for a signature and an election. It would raise the homestead exemption for the disabled and seniors from $10,000 to $60,000.
The owners will see an additional exemption come off for the over 65 as well.
Local realtor Dee Martin reacts. She believes this will be great for both homeowners and those looking to buy a house.
That's going to help. It'll enable people to, be able to get into a home maybe that might not be able to otherwise.
And while most are supportive of tax relief for homeowners, some lawmakers think they could have done more.
Because by only increasing exemptions, it actually puts inflationary pressure on property tax rates.
The next bills will be reviewed by the Texas governor. Voters will be asked in November to approve those amendments.
That was Rachel Davis with that report tonight. The state's water crisis was also front and center this session. While legislators passed two bills, both are still waiting, though, for the final approval from Governor Greg Abbott. They are Senate Bill 7 that would decide the projects the state would finance to safeguard and grow its dwindling water supply. When it comes to House Joint Resolution 7, voters will get to decide in November. And this bill proposes a constitutional amendment that would dedicate up to $1 billion per year to the Texas Water Fund for the next decade. The Texas Legislature also put a bill on Governor Greg Abbott's desk to mandate cooperation between the state's law enforcement agencies and ICE. The bill requires all sheriff's offices who operate a jail to participate in at least one of the three models under ICE's 287G program. State Capitol reporter Adam Schwager breaks down what this now means for Texas.
Governor Greg Abbott has called for stronger immigration legislation this session, and this bill requiring local sheriff's departments to work with ICE does just that. Now, under it, these sheriff's departments would be required to enter at least one of these three models under the 287G program. The first two, they relate to finding people who are already in the jail to turn over to ICE. The third, the task force model, that would deputize local officers to act in limited capacity as enforcement agents of immigration. It's something that Democrats are worried would lead to unsafe streets.
When people did not call police, we had a lot of violence. We had a lot of gang members, and they felt safe. And 287G, it is going to contribute to less people calling the police in communities like mine.
In the House's version of the bill, they specify participation in the warrant service officer model, which allows local law enforcement to serve and execute immigration warrants in their jail. But the Senate wanted to give the sheriffs the choice to enter the task force model.
If they're not illegal aliens or doing something illegal, then they shouldn't have anything to worry about. The people of the United States and of Texas spoke very clearly last November.
While Republicans like former Jackson County Sheriff A.J. Louderback says this will make communities safer.
The program works, it works smooth. It protects lives.
Democrats are concerned about the potential for police to racially discriminate in their newfound immigration duties.
Why would we accept the conference report if we indeed know that this is something that is totally bad and totally harmful?
The bill is now on Abbott's desk. In Austin, I'm Adam Schwager.
Finally, other bills sitting on the governor's desk include legislation dealing with minimum lot sizes, speeding up evictions to deal with squatters, regulating the Texas energy grid, the creation of crisis response policies by local law enforcement in response to mass shootings, and a complete overhaul of the state's lottery system. When we return, more than 8,000 bills were filed this year by Texas legislatures, but only about 1,000 of them passed. A look at bills that died during this session when we come back in just a couple of moments. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. About 7,000 bills were filed this legislative session that failed. Many of those pieces of legislation were making progress, but were stalled by either the House or Senate by missing key deadlines. The governor could also veto any bill sent to him. Now, some of the major bills that died during this session included measures that would have changed the election landscape for Texas voters, like House Bill 5138, which would expand the Texas Attorney General's power to prosecute election crimes. Senate Bill 16 also failed. That measure would have required a proof of citizenship from voters. This bill had been filed by East Texas State Senator Brian Hughes. Finally, House Bill 186, approved by the lower chamber in May, never received a vote in the Senate. The bill would have banned Texas minors from social media, but missed a key deadline. Also, a sweeping proposal to crack down on abortion pills also died after it failed to meet a key deadline in the Texas House. The bill, which had support from state and national anti-abortion groups, was seen as the most aggressive attempt yet to stop the flow of abortion pills into the state. Senate Bill 2880 also passed the Senate easily despite concerns from Democrats, but languished in the House. All right, coming up after the break tonight, final thoughts and what could be ahead for 2027. That's all up after the break. Welcome back tonight. After a 140-day legislative session, Texas lawmakers gaveled out early this month after passing a series of policies and laws, including major conservative victories like bail reform, water funding, and education transparency. The GOP-controlled legislature's productive session leaving Democrats feeling sour with only scattered wins. But regardless of where these policies and these pieces of legislation began, they will now affect and bring significant changes to the lives of every Texan. The next regular session will happen, of course, in 2027. And remember, your vote is your voice. Thanks for watching tonight. Next week, of course, we'll zero in on more issues right here in East Texas. That is all happening this coming Saturday on East Texas in Focus. Have a good night, everybody.